NFL football today here on SportsGrid. Great to be with you once again. Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi, a little bit of a quiet period right now in the National Football League. Some news trickling out, but we're starting to see more and more options in the NFL draft market, which is something that we will certainly be talking about over the next hour, Joe, as we start to try and figure out who is going where come late April.
Yeah, and we're inching closer to the NFL draft at the end of April, to your point, April 26th through the 28th. And it seems like the end of the college season just ended about a couple of weeks ago. But will Fernando Mendoza be, in fact, the number one overall pick? What does Las Vegas do moving forward? And can Ty Simpson, after his pro day, Kevin, close the gap? Because according to multiple reports, the gap isn't that far between Mendoza and Ty Simpson. I believe it's significant, but only time will tell to see where Simpson goes, if in fact he does go in round number one.
There are some Simpson-dedicated markets that we can have some time to get into today, but Fernando Mendoza's price to go first overall, still pretty unchanging. Before we get to any of that, though, I want to pick up with some news out of Seattle. The defending Super Bowl champions have made sure to bring back arguably their best player. That is Jackson Smith-Njigba, a record-breaking contract for JSN, where he last year led the NFL in receiving yards, 119 grabs, 10 touchdowns, and won Offensive Player of the Year, Joe. And he was certainly paid like he did all of those things and then some.
Oh, he was one of the most important players heading up to the Super Bowl. Didn't have the type of Super Bowl that a lot thought of when Kenneth Walker took over. But when you look at the passing attack with Sam Darnold, it was clear that JSN was the number one option. He took games over. We've said it time and time again. He's the best pure route runner potentially in the NFL. And to get $2 million more than Jamar Chase, he has stepped up in big games, even when he's double-teamed through defenses. And Sam Darnold found a way to get JSN the football. Now, a majority of that could have been Clint Kubiak and scheming JSN open. But if you're Seattle and you have thoughts, Kevin, about repeating as Super Bowl champs, they got to sign JSN. And he's a young guy, and he's just coming into his own right now. I mean, he could duplicate exactly what he did last year or potentially beat those numbers in 2026.
Yeah, I think just to, you mentioned Kubiak, and I think it's going to lead to some questions around what the Seattle offense is going to look like, because he is someone who people were very, very excited about as, that Seattle season went on. Even we talk about how it was a little, 3-week window, but he took the league by storm with that Saints run there. So the Seahawks trying to make some deals. But, Joe, I like what you said about the idea of JSN being able to replicate that season, because sometimes, as much as it's on the player, it's about your quarterback. And we have 2 consecutive seasons of Sam Darnold putting his number one wide receiver in a position to have massive seasons. We just told you what the JSN numbers were from this past year. The season prior, Justin Jefferson had 103 yards, 103 catches, 1,500 yards, and 10 touchdowns as well. So health willing, you have to assume that Jackson Smith-Njigba's floor is 115 and 10, pretty much, right? When we think about what this season could be. And it becomes interesting, Joe, when we think about the Offensive Player of the Year race. Very often, we don't see repeat winners. You're not just competing against yourself or against others, you're competing against yourself. And what you did last year, so I think it's great news for JSN to get this money and for Seattle to get the deal done. I think about the reigning Offensive Player of the Year, and I think it's fair to think next season they're going to need more help from, Shaheed, who they brought back. And when we think about the race for OPOI, there are other receivers I'll be more interested in, especially someone like your guy, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I think when you look at the overall market, Kevin, I mean, you're absolutely right. And we've seen teams have a Super Bowl hangover effect, right? Especially when you lose a signal caller like Clint Kubiak, that always could potentially derail the momentum of an offense, right? It takes a while. We talk about these coordinators seeing it through a different set of eyes, and they have to get into a rhythm. So I agree with that. Would I be jumping in the market on JSN to maybe just be that standout wide receiver? No, I would most, for me, I would buy into more Jamar Chase, maybe Justin Jefferson with the addition of Kyler and that offense with O'Connell. And there's some other playmakers coming back from injury as well. So I understand that. But if you're Seattle and you look at the big picture, JSN was 85% of the passing productivity in that offense, and when healthy, could just take games over. He's much like Puka Nacua in that aspect. No matter what, they force feed him the football, and he steps up. He has great hands. He catches the football at its highest point. When he comes out of breaks, he doesn't lose top-end speed, and that's what you want to see. And he's young, hasn't been injured throughout his career, so that's always a positive big picture. When you look at Seattle's success, yes, they have to be motivated, and they have to overcome Clint Kubiak's absence, but as long as JSN's on the football field, he's going to put up numbers. I mean, I think there's no doubt 12 to 1,500 yards isn't out of the realm of possibility next year.
Yeah, I'm very curious, Joe, when we get into week 5, week 6, what the Rashid Shaheed props look like. This is a guy that I know you had belief in, felt a few times he could break out, and he was impactful, but it wasn't consistent, right? Or it wasn't in a way that was reliable from a props perspective, I think a little bit I'm referring to here. I think that Seattle was probably very pleased with what he brought to the table. Obviously, they win a Super Bowl, but you go through the postseason. 3 grabs, 10 targets, 78 yards, had 2 in the Super Bowl, just the 1 grab against the Rams, but it was for 51 yards. Does Shaheed settle in as this team's number 2? Because it really was Cooper Kupp last year. And I think this is a more dangerous football team if Darnold can find a consistent rhythm with Shaheed next year. If we expect this guy, Joe, to go out there and get at least 3 catches every game, the yards per reception are going to be big time. That becomes, I think, a far more prolific Seattle offense that's probably going to have to rely on the passing game more next season with Kenneth Walker finding his way to Kansas City.
Absolutely, Kevin. I mean, Shaheed is young. He's a speedster. He has sprinter speed, and he has more tread on the tire than Cooper Kupp. And that's not a knock on Kupp. Kupp was an experienced veteran that helped the team get to a Super Bowl and win a championship. But if we're talking upside and the ability to maximize speed on the perimeter, Shaheed has to be involved in the offense in 2026. And how about this, though? I think that there is probably going to be more use for Shaheed. Maybe now that Clint Kubiak is gone, right? They got him in the middle of the middle of the season to be that punt returner, added dimension for that offense. And maybe Kubiak didn't feel like he was all that confident as much going to Shaheed each and every play per se. But look at what Liam Cohen did with the passing attack with Jacksonville. Parker Washington was a breakout star. They got rid of Tank Bigsby because he believed more in Travis Etienne last year. So offensive coordinators just have different relationships, I think, with different personnel. And with the new OC coming in or a new play caller, Shaheed has the ability to step up and be that solidified number 2 prospect for Sam Darnold this year.
I think Seattle are one of the teams to really keep a close eye on in this upcoming draft and see what they believe their positions of need are. Does McDonald look to strengthen that defense, or are there different areas on the offensive side of the ball they hope to find impact players come April? Certainly something that we will be following. We'll be back after a quick break right here on Pro Football Today. Pro Football Today on SportsGrid, and I know it says pro football, but we cover all football. And if NFL players are going to be involved, I think then we can talk a little flag football. Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi here. For those that were unaware, there was basically a celebrity all-star game over the weekend, ran by Fanatics with Tom Brady, where some NFL players and celebrities went up against Team USA, the current best group of pure flag football guys in the world. And I am sure the driving force behind this was sponsorship and money and get people to come out. But it's also, I would imagine, a bit of a showcase to get people excited for the Olympics, where flag football is going to be a thing. And there's been a lot of conversation about NFL players participating. And again, playing catch up here perhaps for some of you, the thought for many people is obviously send the NFL players. They're going to be much better. That trio you see on your screen, Jefferson, Chase, Burrow, how could they possibly not dominate even our own guys who are dedicated flag football players? Well, this Fanatics flag football game has thrown a bit of a wrench, I think, in those plans. And I have to imagine Ruben and Tom Brady are going to have to explain themselves to Roger Goodell and whomever was hoping the NFL guys would participate. Because the NFL crew went out there hoping to have a good time. And players like Hoosh, who has been pretty vocal about how disrespectful he thinks it is that people assume Pat Mahomes would be better than him. Well, he was at the podium following the game. And I'd love to show this video to people if we can, because Hoosh was not playing an exhibition. Hoosh was playing in the most important game of his entire life. Take a listen.
No, I'm about to cry already. I'm honored and grateful to be here. Fanatics, NFL, giving me this opportunity. Me, my teammates, the flag football world, they gave us a great opportunity to showcase our sport and why it is an Olympic sport. I made some remarks back in 2023. It was totally misconstrued and misunderstood. All I was speaking of was giving my brothers a fair chance to make 2028. We came out this weekend with that on our mind to say, hey, let's show these guys that we are talented, that we are flag football, and not to be overlooked by anyone in the world. And that's my remarks.
That video from Matt Moreno, at Matt R. Moreno on Twitter. I'm not in any way, Joe, having people look at that video and poking fun at Hoosh for being emotional. I am trying to convey how badly Team USA wanted to abuse these NFL guys, and that's exactly what they did. The only problem, though, Joe, is we didn't send our best. Gronk was out there, ripped his hamstring up on a 2-point conversion. Okay? Alvin Kamara might retire. He was out there rushing the quarterback. Terrence Crawford is a boxer, and he was out there playing. And yet the big takeaway, Joe, is now the NFL guys can't hang with the flag guys. It's a little bit of a mess. I got to tell you, Lisi.
Well, yes, it's a little bit of a mess, but, you know, Team USA wore that on their sleeve. This was their Rocky moment. David versus Goliath, and they marked this game and this weekend down to showcase their skill and step up against the best. And it was Burrow, and it was Brady, and it was Jalen Hurts and Saquon and Devontae Smith, and I saw OBJ look like he was back at LSU there, Kevin.
Sure.
I mean, you know, at the end of the day, there were some plays that Team USA made that were just phenomenal. Now, if you want to look at the game as a whole, the NFL players didn't know the rules. They weren't dialed in like this was, an NFC championship game. And clearly there's no blocking, there's no tackling. It's a different type of game. It's a
Sean Payton's calling
schematic.
plays like it's 3rd and 7 at midfield. He's out there running hitches. There's no laterals, there's no movement.
But Team USA that has played this game, I'm sure, for the last 5 to 10 years, has really honed their craft. And if we're going to send our best, Kevin, Team USA showcased that they're deserving to be the team for the Olympics. I don't think I would pick, Burrow and all of those players to represent us.
This is what I'm talking about it being a mess. Prior to this weekend, there was plausible deniability, right, as to who you should send, right? At the minimum, people would assume it would make no difference. We'd win regardless, right? We could either send the guys that play flag or we can send the legitimate superstars of the National Football League, right? Now, it feels silly to send the NFL guys. But that in of itself feels a little silly because we're judging a game in which one of the quarterbacks for the NFL was Tom Brady. He calls football games. Wasn't Lamar, wasn't Kyler.
Wait a second. Yes, you're right, but let me put it on its same level. The game that we saw over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to put it on a comparison, is like Team USA on the baseball side, not playing baseball, playing wiffle ball. And the NBA guys not playing regular half-court basketball on a full court. It's like playing Nerf ball. Okay?
Yeah.
But that's the comparison. And again, I'm not knocking the flag football guys, but there's no contact in that league. It's a different type of game.
No, Joey. Here's my point. Before that thing, you and I might have gotten into a debate about what it was. It now feels like the NFL guys actually cannot hang with the Fanatics guys. The problem is that was showcased against a boxer and a quarterback tight end duo that have been retired for half a decade. Roger Goodell cannot be too pleased with that Fanatics event. I gotta tell you. We'll be right back on SportsGrid. Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. The NFL draft, Joe, it's going to sneak up on us, man. The one thing that has been steadfast is Fernando Mendoza and him going first overall. And I feel one of the angles that you and I haven't had the chance to talk about yet is Las Vegas following the Maxx Crosby deal being called off, having a little more time to reevaluate if they'd like to keep Crosby. And I'm a little torn on it, but it feels like the kind of thing that maybe would be interesting to you. I know, just because, hey, he's a really good football player, hard to get those kind of guys in your building. Where do you land on the idea of Vegas thinking, you know what? Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. We're going to keep our defensive, best player in Maxx Crosby.
I have no problem with it as long as he's healthy and, able. I think he's a benefit to that team, clearly. He's the best defensive player. You can make the argument he's the best overall player on both sides of the football. And the sell, I don't believe, is that hard to get Maxx Crosby back. If Maxx wasn't happy with the organization at the end of last year, Pete Carroll's gone. The people that made those decisions potentially, during the regular season are no longer there. Mark Davis, okay, maybe you have a problem with him, but he's still the guy paying you. And you have a new head coach, a head coach that just won a Super Bowl, has one of the hottest play callers in the NFL. And oh, by the way, he's going to get the quarterback of the future. So to me, it's not that hard of a sell to bring back Maxx Crosby. The problem is, how disrespected does Crosby feel that he can't go back? And, the sell for me would be, hey, Maxx, it's a business. You know that. We want you back. All things considered, we want to win a championship. We have Kubiak now. We have the young quarterback. Help us get there. I think there's a 70-30 shot. They keep Maxx Crosby, and he's there in 2026, Kevin.
I love the question because I think it's probably on people's mind of, did the Raiders and Crosby reach a point of no return? I think Baltimore looks so bad in this process. We can debate how bad Baltimore looks to, the other 30 organizations, okay, and how this landed for them. But I know for both Las Vegas and Crosby individually, the bad guy here is Baltimore. And I think Maxx can probably look at Vegas and be like, look, I get it, right? Like you said, a business, and I was going to have the opportunity to go win some football games, right? I mean, Baltimore's going to have one of the highest win totals. I mean, they'll have it without him. One of the highest win totals in football. But hey, you know what? I've always wanted to be here. Not a Raider, but like once I became this is what I wanted. And that's where I, like you, am open to the idea of Crosby sticking around. Because you have a brand new head coach, brand new franchise quarterback, right? And this is a Raiders team, unlike Dolphins, right? Or, Browns, Jets, whomever it might be, where, hey, we won 3 games, but, like, we're going to be fine. We're going to draft quarterback. This is a Raiders team who wins 7 games and feels amazing. Amazing with 7 wins. And if they can get more, they can get more. But to have a leader, like, not all guys are leaders, right, Joe? I think Crosby's one. And without him, defensively, you're like, But now you think, whoa, they got Taron Johnson on the cheap. Really good player out of Buffalo. Nakobe Dean, when healthy, really good player out of Philly, right? Georgia linebacker. I know you're a big fan of Nakobe Dean here. This is a Raider team. I mean, Joe, Crosby in this situation, he might be worth a full win on a win total here when we talk about Las Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're building for the future, Kevin, you have a foundation and a team captain, to your point, that the younger players can learn from. And again, now with the big 3, Bowers, Genti, and most likely Mendoza with Kubiak, offensively, we know they're going to come into their own. It's a matter of can they build around the defense, and it's much easier to do that with Maxx Crosby in the lineup than with him out of it.
At 2, it will likely be the Jets on the clock. They could always trade that pick. It is a Jets team that is turning back the clock a little bit with Geno Smith projected to be the starting quarterback, but it is a big year for Aaron Glenn if he wants to remain the lead man for the New York Jets. We'll talk about it after a quick break right here on SportsGrid.
It's not sustainable. Pitches throwing too hard and not being healthy, so that don't benefit anybody as well. So it's better to, if a guy throwing 97, why not just throw 94, 93 and learn how to pitch? And then you can last longer. So it's more about keeping the product, on the field and being on a consistent basis.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
About the expansion stuff.
Yeah, but doesn't it make a lot of sense, Kev? So, but it's 28-29. He's already talked about, I'm playing in the Olympics in 2028. Retirement isn't on KD's mind right now. Play in the Olympics in 2028, and then the 2029 season, play where it all started, baby. Seattle.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
If you could argue UConn's more overseeded than, the idea that UConn was battling for a 1 seed, quite frankly, never made any of sense to me when you look at where their metrics were stacked.
UConn will be great as long as they don't play St. John's, apparently, in the tournament. They're good to go there. But you put them at a 5, Kevin. Now here we go again, like last year, Bill Self versus Rick Pitino.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Major League Baseball announced yesterday that they will be having a partnership this season with a company that we've come to be very familiar with over the last 6 months. Polymarket is the exclusive prediction market partner of Major League Baseball and the only platform allows to use teams, logos, and marks. Representing the latest pro league to embrace the prediction markets.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
We expect Mendoza to come off of the board at 1 overall. We are expecting Arvell Reese to maybe come off of the board at 2nd overall. This is a market that is continuing to push towards the Ohio State linebacker, edge rusher. I want to start with Aaron Glenn for a second, though, Joe, where, firing coach after 1 season should be rare, and ultimately, it is, and the Jets did not do it. But the Aaron Glenn hire is never something I was infatuated with because some of his candidacy didn't really make sense to me. He was a defensive coordinator for a handful of seasons in Detroit. I never thought those defenses were very good. The Lions were good. They were good because of their offense. Usually they were losing games because we're like, wow, that defense isn't very good. And last year, the Jets were bad and had stretches of looking like the worst defense in football. And for a former cornerback who cut his teeth as a coach, Joe, as a DB's coach, to end up being the head coach of the first ever NFL team to not have a single intercepted pass by a defense in a year, man, I got to tell you, that's a really tough sell. And if they would have moved off of Aaron Glenn after 1 season, I would have understood it. I would have. They didn't. But how much of a chance do you give Aaron Glenn to be the Jets head coach in year number 3?
He's got to win, Kevin, at least 7 or 8 games. I mean, I can't see.
I'm not sure
Aaron
that'd be
Glenn.
enough to be honest with you. I think
It
they're ready to
depends.
move off of him, but go for it.
Well, I think. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, what are you getting? Is the defense showing considerable progression? Are they a top 15 unit? To your point, they couldn't force interceptions last year. They were terrible against some mediocre offenses. Defensively, they didn't show any dominance in any particular game. They got abused in the secondary. They got rid of Sauce Gardner. I mean, the foundation, they're in a complete rebuild. The foundation is completely bare bones at this point. And I agree with you. I mean, what did Aaron Glenn show you defensively that warrants him being the head coach? They went from one of the best defensive coordinators in Robert Saleh to Aaron Glenn, okay, and when we did all the breakdowns leading up to Aaron Glenn and his interview with the New York Jets with Cap and all of the experts, they all said that Aaron Glenn knew every phase of the organization. He wasn't just hired because he was a defensive wizard, right? He knew the player personnel, he knew the scouting department, he knew every aspect of the organization. Did he showcase that last year? Is there any shot that he's showcasing it in the offseason this year? I mean, so unless you show me signs of improvement with a clear-cut plan, not just for 2026, but for 2027, that you're going to get that quarterback of the future and you're going to be maybe inching towards a wild card or an AFC playoff spot, how do you keep Aaron Glenn around in 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, I think it's a tough sell. I do. I think, everything still in this league can revolve around the quarterback position. They didn't have one last year. We don't think they have a franchise solution this year. And I think the fact that Aaron Glenn kept his job is somewhat a signal that the Jets weren't going to be taking a quarterback in this year's draft, right? And that's what I think is most interesting, Joe. They have a player drafted by market over on DK. They've got a couple of guys up there, Kenyon Sadiq, but they have Ty Simpson, and he's plus 140 to be a Jet. He's plus 140 to be a Cardinal. If he's a Jet, that fan base then has to reassess what they think of everyone calling shots. There is just no world that makes sense. There just isn't. Ty Simpson is not going to give him a better chance to win games over Geno Smith. And if you lose a bunch of games and you start Ty Simpson for, the last month and a half of the season, well, that's going to feel silly because you're going to have a high-level draft pick next year with a brand new coach, and he's going to want his own quarterback. So I don't know. The value on Simpson is anyone other than the Jets, in my opinion, because I think they are right now, Joe, making better decisions, and Ty Simpson would be an awful decision, especially in the first round by the New York Jets.
Look, I've come out against quarterbacks, and I was wrong potentially about Drake May, and I was high on Jaden Daniels, as you know. But I don't think Ty Simpson, Kevin, is a first-round draft pick. I know he had a great pro day, but again, against better competition at Alabama and better defenses, Ty Simpson didn't light the world on fire. Ty Simpson lost 4 games at Alabama with clearly one of the best talents on the outside, in Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. I mean, let's be honest. Let's call it what it is. And when you look at this team and you look at the New York Jets as a whole, they're going to if they make Ty Simpson the quarterback, it would be eerily similar to the situation of selecting Zach Wilson when he wasn't NFL ready. Let's be honest. I mean, I understand you want to take a shot, but you have a lame duck potential coach. And who, by the way, let me just say this, Kevin, and I know he comes with a lot of off the field stuff, but if the New York Jets wanted to go defense, I would have much rather them go all in on Brian Flores than I would have with Aaron Glenn. And the reason why Aaron Glenn is walking the sidelines is because he's a former Jet in his playing days. That's another reason why they wanted it close to home. Outside of that, Aaron Glenn hasn't done anything defensively up to the likes of Brian Flores, right? I'm just saying. So the organization is in disarray. And when we look at Ty Simpson as a whole, yeah, there's upside, but you better surround him with unbelievable talent and protect him. Otherwise, it's going to be another wasted draft pick and another wasted a quarterback that can't cut it in New York.
But I also find some of the Ty Simpson coverage that we're seeing from some mainstays in the NFL media to be very silly. Through 8 games, through 6 games, Ty Simpson looks better. Okay, thanks, brother. Thanks. I'm glad he lit up UL Monroe and Wisconsin. I'm glad you were impressed by the Vanderbilt game. Okay, they didn't play 6. They didn't play 8. They played 15 games at Alabama. And Ty Simpson, as the year went on, got worse. Not better, worse. Him versus Mendoza is not a conversation, no matter how much, okay, Buddy Boy and Buddy O want it to be. That's just what it is. It's not a conversation. And you're only hurting Simpson by doing that. And we have now seen in this new, especially this is where the NILs help some of these guys, a lot of these guys go back to school and get more reps under their belt. We've been now, I think, taught Joe recently, Anthony Richardson, a glaring example. Hey, these guys don't have a lot of starts. Be careful. Simpson has 15 of them. I think the reason Ty Simpson came out is he wasn't going to be the starting quarterback at Alabama next year. No chance. No chance. Okay? And he said, well, someone's got to be QB2, right? Someone's going to have to go second in this draft. Dante Moore opted to go back to Oregon, right? Whatever it may be, Dante Moore has a good idea that he's going to keep that job, okay? You know, Mahomes Jr. is not going to take that job off of Dante Moore. Simpson, to me, is someone who, we've seen this before, Joe. A lot of people make us think round one, and then he's lucky if he goes in round 2.
Yeah, I agree 100%. He is a raw prospect that won't cut it, in my opinion, for the next 2, 3, or 4 seasons. It could be just a backup the rest of his career, Kevin.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, take a look at some of the other options there. Picks 3, picks 4, pick 5 odds are out and available. What are we seeing after the break right here on SportsGrid?
I wait until I get the tournament bracket. Then you'll see me start to talk about who makes a run, who's right to get picked off. You go back to last year, look at St. John's, right? They were on a roll. They got Arkansas, who was a better version of St. John's.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
You know, you don't usually get Alabama basketball booked at less than 160. You're getting that now here. The real question is Aiden Holloway done for the tournament for an Alabama team who, you know, we've seen under Nate Oates, they're more than capable of getting themselves to a Sweet 16 and Elite 8 and maybe even beyond that.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
9+ sounds pretty good here, Donnie, at around even money, right? I got no problem there, trading at 54 cents. And again, all the pressure is on the higher seeds and the favorites, right? Start getting into that 4 or 5 minute mark in the second half, and you're down double digits. Some teams, it does not get better, Donnie. They don't pull themselves up off the court.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
NBA Central sent out a tweet yesterday. Hornets announcer Eric Collins says Jalen Duren is one of his favorite players to watch. Quote, I like talking about that body of his, cut up like coleslaw, end quote. Interesting.
Yeah. Not quite sure what the reference to coleslaw is. No idea, Donnie. I have no idea.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Here with you on Sports Grid, Kevin Walsh, Joe Lisi. Right now, heavy favorite. Mendoza goes first. Becoming a bigger favorite, Arvel Reese goes second. And then we get into the uncertainty of the third overall selection, which belongs to the Arizona Cardinals. Right now, using the numbers available over on DraftKings, David Bailey is the favorite, but at plus 255. Again, compare that to Reese at minus 230. Even the favorite to go fourth overall is actually at a minus price. Francis Mwaga is option 2 at plus 330. You have Arvel Reese at plus 370. If, the idea being it's an upset. He doesn't go 2, goes 3. Jeremiah Love checks in at plus 450. Spencer Fano and Sonny Styles, the only two guys underneath that 10-1, what would be 14-1 barrier actually here, Joe. What jumps off the page to you when you see these odds to be the third overall pick, which, again, barring a trade, will be the Arizona Cardinals?
I mean, the Cardinals, Kevin, to me, need multiple help, right? And if there was, let's say, a pure number 2 quarterback, knowing that Kyler Murray now has moved on to Minnesota and they're going to roll the dice with aging Jacoby Brissett again, I mean, they need a franchise guy. But there's nobody worthy in that selection or that spot to potentially go and pull the trigger. So there's 2 ways they can go about it. Do they trade out and get more draft capital out of 3, or do they get the best available player to potentially at least solidify one side of the football? And for me, I know they need offensive line help, but I would still take a shot on Bailey. What they did last year, Walter Nolan, and he's coming off an injury now, and Will Campbell in the back end. It didn't work out with Jonathan Gannon, but if I could get Bailey at 3 overall, I would take him. I think he's a legitimate game changer. He is a guy similar to Myles Garrett and Maxx Crosby in the sense of you can't double team him. He could take a game over, not just with the passing attack and getting after the passer, but in run support. He clearly forces double teams, and that's what you want to see. So if I'm the GM and I'm like not going to trade out, I'm taking David Bailey, number 3 overall.
So the first top 10 mock draft that we did here, Joe, on Pro Football Today, I had Bailey going 3rd overall with kind of, what you talked about of, let's just get a game changer. Who are we to be drafting for need as the Arizona Cardinals, right? We need quarterback. There isn't one. So let's just take someone that we think could be a star. And I think it's on the board that David Bailey is the best edge rusher in this class. I'll tell you something else that stands out to me, and it's that Francis Mwaga is plus 330. Spencer Fano is plus 850. And Monroe Freeling is 14-1. There are options out right now to be the first player selected at certain positions. To give you guys an idea, Mansour Delane, Lisi's guy, LSU special, almost minus 500 to be the first cornerback selected. Cornell Tate is about minus 300 to be the first wide receiver selected. The first offensive lineman is a dead heat at plus 110 between Mwaga and Freeling. The Georgia tackle has really rocketed up during this process. The NFL Combine, he can really, I think, thank for that. Fano is at 6-1. I think what's interesting, and just, as you try and follow the mock draft breadcrumbs, but sometimes things become a little too groupthinky here. A lot of people, Joe, and we don't have 6th overall pick odds out, but seem to not only believe Cleveland's going to go offensive line at 6, but Freeling offering true franchise tackle upside could see him be the obvious pick for a team like Cleveland, where Mwaga and Fano, people wonder, are these guys guards? Some people are wondering if Spencer Fano's a center. I've seen some of those conversations, Joe.
Yeah, Kevin, when you look at, tackles and you look at guards, multiple, the player that could play multiple positions has better value, I think, right? Especially on the NFL level when we see, injuries take place and the ability to move from left tackle to right tackle or play guard or, to your point, center in that aspect. But if you're Cleveland and you're Arizona, here's the thing. Arizona couldn't run the football for anything last year. They had one of the worst rushing attacks. Offensive line is terrible. Cleveland, if Quinshon Judkins comes back healthy, And we know what the offense has now with Monken, right? You got to protect whoever it's going to be, whether it be Shador or whoever wins that starting job. The offensive line isn't a bad pick, but, I feel like Cleveland does this time and time again where, they're always taking the offensive defensive linemen and they're never going anywhere. They're stuck in neutral. At some point, they have to get star players on the offensive side of the ball. You can't just draft them in round 2 and 3 and expect them to be all pros each and every year. But right now, this year, it is good that I think Cleveland goes offensive line because, again, they want to run the football and they want to protect their quarterback. So we'll see how it plays out.
So I want to just jump ahead to the 4th pick, Joe, but I really want to make it about one guy because Jeremiah Love is minus 135 to go 4th to Tennessee. He is plus 425 to go 5th to the Giants. If you look at player drafted by, we talked about this market a little bit with Ty Simpson. Love is minus 150 to be a Titan, plus 330 to be a Commander, 4-1 to be a New York Giant. You had talked about this, about, the idea of Love being a Giant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about the Tennessee fit in a second. And I want to get Joe's thoughts on this, so allow me to go on this, Joe. We're going to get your thoughts on the other side. But I had been very thrown by the idea of the Giants having Cam Scatterboo in-house and wanting to move off of him for Jeremiah Love, right? And you factor in the injury. That throws things off a little bit. But I've said I don't fully believe that Harbaugh is enamored with some of the incumbent talent he has. Okay? And that's just not Cam, but that's Dart a little bit. And Cam Scatterboo gets himself in hot water a little bit over the weekend. We don't need to get into the comments. They're nonsensical, but Cam Scatterboo is a nonsensical guy. But all it does is tell me even more and more and more that Harbaugh would not just be willing to move off of Cam Scatterboo, ready to move off of Cam Scatterboo and make Jeremiah Love the bell cow back here in New York. It's going to be fascinating. I want to get Joe's thoughts on it after a quick break with you right here on SportsGrid.
I don't like to overthink it, Kevin. I really don't. And similar situation, I feel the same way when it comes to betting. I find like that Sunday night, so, you're watching the NFL games, and all of us do it. Like, all right, let's look to next week now. You know what I mean? That Sunday, the dust is settled on the game. They just ended, so I'm like, let's look at next week. My first reaction is always the best reaction.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Why the regular season, Joe, does mean something, because Detroit is going to get a back-end team in the East to begin.
Yes, and it does. And it's just a very strange situation, unfortunate situation for Cade Cunningham in Detroit. But the good news is, if you keep playing teams like the Washington Wizards, well, you're not going to need Cade Cunningham to win those games like they did last night.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We are really starting to see that slowdown, and we're anticipating it with March Madness this year. Obviously, you don't have as many states going online. Gone are the days when you're adding 10 states every year, so the numbers will inflate that way. And I mentioned prediction markets taking money as well. One firm, HG Gambling Capital, estimates that they'll add about another $500 million in bets.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You can put your skill and your luck to work on Kalshi. Why? They're offering $1 billion here. If you can pick the perfect bracket, sounds easy, Joe. Just pick the perfect bracket, get $1 billion.
Yeah, I think the odds of actually doing that, Donnie, are about the same if you're expecting to hit the Powerball lottery 6 times in a year.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
Closing out another fun edition of Pro Football Today here. Joe, the Giants in love. I actually think you were first on this. I really believe that. This potential fit here. Has your belief that is, kind of where we end up grown as, we've only gotten a little bit deeper into this process?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sticking to it, Kevin. I think Jeremiah Love is going to be a New York Giant in number 5. I don't think Tennessee will pull the trigger at Jeremiah Love. I just think they have other team needs. I can go into that. I think if Cornell Tate is there at 4, you take him. And I know it might be too high for a wide receiver, but you have to make an assessment sooner rather than later on Cam Ward. And I've told you this about what they did to get a determination about Jalen Hurts. They surrounded him with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You surround Cam Ward. They just signed Wan'Dale Robinson. You get Cornell Tate, and you now have a full season with those duo and Cam Ward in a new passing attack. There is no reason why Tennessee should draft Jeremiah Love when they have Tony Pollard and they still have Tajay Spears. I'm sorry, there's no need. There is no need to draft Jeremiah Love when you have a second-year quarterback that you have to make a determination that you took number 1 overall and you haven't surrounded him with weapons, get the best available wide receiver, and then play 17 games then, and then reevaluate Cam Ward with Brian Dable at the helm. You cannot take Jeremiah Love and do it the opposite way. I'm sorry, you just can't do it.
I am fascinated, Joe, to the Tennessee point of it, of what that conversation right now with Dable and Saleh is with this 4th pick, where I think Robert Saleh, the defensive background, would be willing to concede, okay, let's go offense to get a running back, because that's what defensive guys love. They love running backs. They love running the football. I'm wondering if Brian Dable is of the mind of, this is a do-over with Saquon. We're going to get him. He's as good as Saquon in his mind. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, okay. And we're going to win with Jeremiah Love being a superstar for our football team. Or does Brian Dable think, I just had Cam Scottaboo legitimately looking like an offensive player, or offensive rookie of the year candidate. I'll find a running back. I will find a running back. There are other things that'll be more important for this football team. Or maybe Dable's banging the table for Love, and Robert Saleh's like, sorry, Sonny Styles is Fred Warner. You're beat. I'm taking Fred Warner, right? And I don't mean to put that on Sonny Styles, but, people are enamored with the prospect, and
Right.
Obviously we know how important Fred Warner was in San Francisco. I think it's one of the most fascinating things. But the thing that I would say, and the reason why betting Love to be a Giant is difficult, I now completely agree he's the pick if he's on the board at 5. I'm not saying it's what I would do, but it's what I think they will do. I don't know if he'll be there. That's what I'm struggling with, Joe. I'm still not fully sure he'll be there.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate and ask you this. Looking at the roster for Tennessee, is Wan'Dale Robinson your number 1? Is he the go-to guy with Cam Ward? Is Eric Ayamore, the go-to guy? You got an aging Calvin Ridley. At what point do you actually put a pure number 1 around Cam Ward? It was Callahan and that staff's decision last year to not surround him with elite wide receiver talent. Now you have a top 5 pick. We know about how Ohio State wide receivers hit the ground running in the NFL. I mean, we just made one of them the highest paid at the position with $42 million per year. Now we have the opportunity to get the best one coming out of Columbus, and you're going to pass up on him for another running back? I mean, Kevin, if they didn't have a second-year quarterback in Cam Ward, I would agree with you. If they had a pure veteran, you go maybe running back. But the fact that they have a second-year quarterback that they don't even know at this point is the face of the franchise, they hope. You have to put talent around him.
I think, no, Joe. So if I remember correctly, I think I may have put Cornell Tate at 4 in that first mock that we did, just because the Titans' leading receiver last year was Chigakongwo. So, yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson isn't enough to, oh, well, now we're set, right? Calvin Ridley isn't what they thought he was going to be. Calvin Ridley struggled to stay healthy as well. I mean, there was a lot there, really, for this football team. I think Tennessee, the Cardinals are uncertain, but respectfully, it's not as interesting as a Titans team who has to nail this offseason because this draft, because they believe they have the franchise quarterback on the roster. For Joe Lisi, I'm Kevin Walsh. It's Pro Football Today on SportsGrid.